Welcome to Highly Sensitive, Happily Married, the podcast that teaches you to not only have an easier marriage as a sensitive woman, but to have one that feels more amazing by the day. Where you'll hear relatable stories, love advice that works, and coaching on how to have a marriage where feeling upset and disconnected is a thing of the past, and where instead a sense of loving connection and even fun and lightness is the norm. I'm Hannah Brooks, highly sensitive person, love expert, and marriage coach, and I'm so happy to be on this journey with you. Hey, my friends, and happy fall. I'm not sure if where you live it's cooling off and feeling like autumn yet, but here it definitely is. I'm wrapped up in my sweater, looking out at the slowly changing leaves. It's still mostly green, but this time of year is kind of bittersweet here in Vermont. In any case, thank you so much for listening in today. I don't think I say it often enough, but I just so appreciate you and feel honored that you're listening to what I have to share. And today what I want to share with you is 18 counter-instinctual ways to a love-filled marriage. But before we dive in, I want to remind you, for those of you who have not taken it yet, I have a wonderful quiz called What's Your Best Next Step to Improve Your Marriage? And I highly recommend every single one of you take this free quiz. It's literally just 6 questions, and it's going to give you the most impactful place for you personally to focus on now to quickly improve your marriage as a sensitive woman. And once you take the quiz, you're going to get specific steps for you for the fastest, most permanent shift towards the connected, light, team feel relationship that you want with your spouse. So I'll put the link for this in the show notes, the description of this podcast episode, but you can also find it on the homepage of my website, which is hspmarriagecoaching.com. If you just scroll down a tiny bit, you're going to see this free quiz. What's your best next step to improve your marriage? I mean, there's no reason not to take it. And it is going to give you some really helpful information for you, because I know this podcast is like a huge library, but how do you know where to start to improve your marriage, your unique marriage, the quickest, right? So that's what this quiz is for, to help you identify that. So go take it. It'll take 2 minutes or less. So let's talk about these 18 counter-instinctual ways to a love-filled marriage. Now, in some ways, today's kind of a review or an overview of many things that I've already shared in this whole podcast, but I want to put it much more succinctly. And ultimately, I really do have a big point I want to make, which I think is really important to understand if you want to break from the sort of norm in the United States, in the Western world, of feeling just okay about your marriage, or of course feeling unhappy in it like so many people are. And a part of this point is that building the best possible marriage with your partner is going to entail a lot of things that are not instinctual, that are actually quite counterintuitive or counter-instinctual, which is why so many of us don't naturally approach relationships in ways that make them really thrive. And this is one of the reasons why you might be in a lot of pain in your marriage or just not happy in it, because you may be, like almost all of us, approaching your relationship in an instinctual way or instinctual ways instead of the counter-instinctual ways that heal and connect and truly fulfill. So I want to make it clear that I am not knocking intuition. There are things that we do to promote connection and ease and love in our marriages that really do come naturally and intuitively, of course. But these things can oftentimes get kick-started, right? We can get better at following our intuition and doing these intuitive, love-promoting things by taking very counter-instinctual approaches, ones that were not taught in sort of mainstream or by mainstream relationship advice. And these counter-instinctual approaches are ones that actually get us into our hearts, where our natural inner guidance toward loving connection resides, and of course can be listened to. Now, I want to make clear that there is a big difference between instinct and intuition, even though they do get confused a fair amount. So instinct, which is what I'm talking about today, often comes from habit and really the fearful, protective parts of us. Intuition, on the other hand, is when we tap into true wisdom. Intuition, of course, is very helpful in love, but instinct often is not, because again, it's often a fearful impulse, right? Instinct is, or simply a habituated pattern. And those are generally not geared towards thriving, but rather surviving. So instinct tends to be more about protection and efficiency, which of course is important for surviving, for sure, but it's usually not the best things for great loving connection. And I know I definitely used to do the instinctual thing a lot in my marriage, and it was very often not the thing that worked well. In fact, I pretty much instinct my first marriage to the ground. And to further clarify, our instinctual approaches to relationships are not the same as skillful approaches to relationship. And as I learned the hard way in my first marriage, so many of these instinctual approaches just hurt our relationships. So today, I just want to offer up some of the things that may go against your instinct to do in your relationship, at least at first, but will actually yield a much better relationship when you lean into counter-instinctual approaches. Now, I do want to say, like I have said in other podcast episodes, that some of these may not even be counter-instinctual, but counter-cultural, because you, like most of us, may tend to do certain things or approach a relationship in certain ways that you were taught, right? That you were conditioned to. Like you've taken in ideas and ways of being from the culture you are part of that is simply unavoidable as a human being. And these behaviors, these ideas, these ways of being, ways of relating have become patterns or habits for you. And so they feel like quote unquote instinct. They are like the default ways of being or reacting. But many of the things that we've been conditioned to believe and ways we've been conditioned to interact in our modern world are not helpful when it comes to having a great relationship. You've definitely heard me talk about this over the years on this podcast. So that conditioning becomes what feels like instinct, and that instinct actually hurts our relationship much of the time. So I want to give you the antidote to that. I want to give you 18 of the counterintuitive or counterinstinctual things that you need to understand and live to make your marriage one you feel so good in, so right in, so at home in, and so much love in. So I know 18 might sound like a lot, but I just invite you as you're listening to not feel like you have to like memorize all of these 18 things, but just kind of like let them wash over you. And if one or several of them kind of speaks to you, then focus in on that. Use that counterintuitive approach and kind of explore that for the next week or 3 or whatever. Please don't feel like you need to do all of these at once. That would just be overwhelming to anyone, especially a highly sensitive person like you. So I'm going to kind of name the counterinstinctual approach for each of these. And then for some of them, I'm going to dive in a little deeper. And for some of them, I'm not, because otherwise this might be like a 3-hour episode. But the first one I'm going to explain a little bit more. So the first one is understand deeply that it only takes one person in a 2-person marriage or relationship to change everything for the better. Now, I have been talking about this a little bit lately. The last couple episodes have kind of focused a little bit on this. And I think it feels counterinstinctual because we're taught that it takes 2 people. So I'm just going to share now with you a little bit more about why it only takes one person in a 2-person marriage to change everything for the better. So when you change how you interact, your partner will be interacting with something new, with someone new, right? And so he can't help but interact in a new way himself. Like we're always going to interact differently with something new. Over and over when my clients show up with like more appreciation, they actually get more appreciation back. When they show up with more patience, they get more patience back. When they start saying, I love you again, they start hearing, I love you again back. So it's not that your partner doesn't do anything in your marriage when you initiate the change. It's really just that you initiate it. You just go first. When you simply start leading the way by doing the work on your side of the street, conversations get easier and deeper. Flirtiness and playfulness become things again. Dates get on the calendar and actually enjoyed. And lovemaking becomes pleasurable again. And to people who are doing this work and watching this happen, it feels like magic, right? But it happened because you went first, because you initiated change in yourself, and your partner couldn't help but follow. You started the work on your own, but you did not do it all on your own. Your partner got on board and collaborated with you to do it by your side. You reached out your hand first, and then he reached out and stroked your hand in return. You said the honest, loving thing first, and he responded with an honest, open heart. So you never do all the work on the relationship. You just do the work that is yours to do. So again, because of your conditioning, it might sound counter-instinctual, but it's actually the way it works. All right, counter-instinctual approach that works. Number 2, being generous with your love and your kindness and your compassion, etc., will allow you to receive so much more of it from your spouse. And when I say generous and all of that, I mean genuinely generous and kind and compassionate. Because when you're in those states of being, and you're not coming from a transactional place where you are only generous, quote unquote, and loving, quote unquote, to get something in return, right? In other words, when you're not giving to get, when you're genuinely generous, you're going to feel so good in yourself, and you're just going to emanate love. And that actually is deeply attractive and puts you in a place where you can truly best receive the love and attention that is already there. And you're much more likely to call forth more of that love and attention from your spouse. So when we're not in our hearts like this, when we are unloving or like our hearts are closed, we're not able to receive the care and love that is already there. So when you want love and connection, do not wait for your spouse to bring it to you. Okay? Get into your heart, find the love and care and compassion there, and offer it instead. Proactively lead it by, for example, inviting him on a date, offering a loving touch, or a truce in a conflict. Do this a lot, and you change the culture in your marriage to one where you're both generous in your love. Number 3, learning to meet your own needs before anyone else's, including your partner's, is one of the most selfless things you can do for the quality of love and connection between you and your partner and your family in general. Another way of putting this is taking care of you is taking care of them and your relationship. And this is extra specially true for highly sensitive people. Number 4, taking plenty of alone time is one of the best ways to make time with your partner more fun, connecting, and richly rewarding. And this, again, is especially true for highly sensitive people who do need a fair amount of alone time to recuperate and be at our best. And when we are at our best, life with our honey is lighter, more loving, more rewarding. It's really just that simple. Now, this does actually hinge a little bit on what you're doing in your alone time. So make it healthy, quality alone time that is genuinely restorative, okay? All right, number 5, taking responsibility for your own feelings and experiences in your marriage instead of blaming them on your partner is not only going to free both of you up to be able to enjoy and cherish each other so much more, it's also going to allow you to be so much more empowered to create more of all of the types of experiences you want between you. So this is a kind of complex one, and I just want to point you to a couple potential other episodes on this podcast to help with this one if you want to dive deeper. So the first one I'd refer you to is episode 103, which is making self-responsibility in relationships fun. And the other one is called Needs versus Wants in Marriage, and that's episode 96, I believe. I know I've talked about this pretty much throughout every episode to some degree on this podcast, but those two will be, I think, especially helpful around this. Oh, and actually, maybe even the best one for this is like, why is it possible for you to be responsible for your own feelings? Is episode 193, just a very recent one. It's called Where Your Feelings Really Come From. So those are three excellent ones for why taking responsibility for your own feelings actually makes your marriage so much better. Number 6, focusing on what's strong and secure between you and your spouse, even when things are shaky between you or when you've been focusing on what is going wrong, will actually create so much more that is strong and secure between you. So I actually spoke to this a little bit, kind of hidden in the episode 194, which was a recent episode. It's called Reverse Sexism in Relationships. That one could be interesting if you want to understand this a little better. Another one that could be great to listen to is Our Love is Fragile syndrome. That was an earlier episode. I think it was 54. But I mean, it's kind of obvious, right? Like if you're focusing on what is shaky or what is going wrong, you're only going to see and feel and ultimately create more of it. If you're focusing on what is good and what is strong and what is secure between you, it's actually going to reinforce that. You're actually going to see more of that, and you're going to feel more of that, and you're going to ultimately much more easily build more of that. So that's so important and so counter-instinctual when things are feeling unsettled. Yeah. The 7th counter-instinctual thing is focusing on building love for yourself will allow you to experience so much more love between the two of you. So I should have said focusing on building love for yourself first will allow you to experience so much more love between the two of you. Now, this is so essential that it's actually one of the 3 simple things that you absolutely must be able to do to have a great relationship in the way that I approach relationships, right? Like this is loving and believing in your sensitive self is a third of the work, basically. So to understand why and to understand this more deeply and to actually get 7 steps to doing this, go listen to episode 89. It's called Loving Yourself to More Love in Your Relationship or something like that. Really important episode. All right, number 8, emotionally protecting yourself with anger, aloofness, giving the cold shoulder, complaining, not being vulnerable, not sharing what's true for you, by never risking rejection or loving fiercely with a full heart. So any of those protection mechanisms will actually hurt you more than not protecting yourself in these ways. So this is definitely counter-instinctual, but it's true. Because if you're coming from these protective places, it will prevent you from slipping into the soft, safe, nourishing love you deeply want with your partner. In other words, being willing to feel some uncomfortable emotions will bring you way more love and security in your marriage. And following on the back of that is number 9, which is simply softness is strength in love. Number 10 is that sometimes saying the hard thing in the moment, when you really don't want to, and it's really hard, is the exact thing that will get you more ease together for the rest of your life. And that's just a simple truth, so I'll leave it at that. Number 11, sometimes, this is kind of the opposite of number 10, sometimes holding your tongue and being quiet is the ticket to better communication and connection between you. So for this one, I'm simply going to refer you to episode 159, which is called the Backfiring Tactics 2.0, and 188 called Psychological Boundaries for More Closeness. Those are really going to make it clear why this is so true. Number 12, saying no can be one of the most loving things you can do for your marriage. And episode 49 is exactly this topic. It's called I Love You and No. 13 is setting strong boundaries in your relationship can lead to much more closeness and connection. And I know that totally sounds counterintuitive, right? It's like putting up some walls, some healthy walls actually creates more connection. What? But it absolutely does. And this is especially true for highly sensitive women whose boundaries can tend to kind of be weak in some ways, and that can actually cause a lot of problems. So the boundary episode that I just mentioned is a good one, but there's also another one called Relationship Boundary Basics, and that's essential listening. And that's episode 51. I'm going to try not to constantly mention other episodes, so let's see how that goes. All right, number 14, being self-respecting, even if it means going against what your partner wants, can create more mutual respect between you. So listen, we have to treat ourselves how we want to be treated by others. We actually model how we are meant to be treated by how we relate to ourselves, by how we feel about ourselves. But as with so many of these kind of counter-instinctual things, it kind of boils down to this idea that when you are well, like really well inside yourself, your relationship will be well too, or it will have the best chance to be well. And also, of course, self-respect, boundaries, saying no, confidence, all of that is quite sexy. Number 15, deciding who you want to be in your marriage instead of focusing on who your partner is being will allow you to step into being the woman with a marriage she wants and treasures. And episode 169 is excellent for this. It's called Being Who You Want to Be in Your Relationship Revisited. So have a listen to that one. Number 16, feeling how you want to feel now, even when things aren't great between you and your honey, is how you bring it alive into your future, right? So let me say that differently. Feeling how you want to feel now, feeling good now, will bring more good feelings alive between you and your spouse into the future. So guide yourself to feelings of love and safety and lightness and connection now so that you can have tons of them for years to come in your marriage. So I understand that this one might sound kind of almost wacky even, but it is also kind of magic. So the thing is, we tend to instinctually think that we have to make the external things change in our marriage to feel good. Or like we need to make the communication really great, or we need our husband to show us a lot of affection. And sure, of course that helps. But really, when we focus on simply changing the feelings that we're having, which is the most important thing, and what really matters, like that's what we all, you've heard me say this in the podcast before, what we all ultimately deep down want is a feeling. We want the feelings of safety, of love, of peace, of connection, of belonging, etc. So when we cultivate those, regardless of how great our relationship is on the outside, we actually change the external, like how your partner responds to you. Like I talked about on number 1 on this episode, the first counterintuitive thing. So when my clients learn how to do this, they start consciously feeling good now on purpose, feeling loved, feeling loving, feeling fulfilled, feeling treasured now, whether or not their partner is doing the things that to actively treasure them or cause these feelings, so to say. My clients not only feel good now, but they also change the culture of their marriage, the energy at the heart of their marriage. And that does tend to elicit new responses from their husband, new ways of interacting together, more lightness and love and laughter and fun. And that really leads to a much happier future together. So yeah, right now you might not know how to guide your feelings into those places, but it's just a skill you haven't yet learned. It's actually a fairly easy skill to get good at when you have the right tools. So feel good today, regardless of how great your partner is being to you. And that will absolutely make your future and your tomorrow with your husband so much better. Number 17, some of the best work you can do for way more love is to focus on changing your brain and your relationship to it rather than focusing on changing your partner. Again, this is highly counterinstinctual, right? And it's a little bit, and maybe one reason I would also call it countercultural is because it's a little bit cutting edge, or maybe it's very cutting edge. And in fact, maybe all of my work is cutting edge. But we can do this because we now understand the brain in ways that we never used to, right? Thanks to neuroscience and such. Now, you've heard me talk about this a fair amount on this podcast if you've been a dedicated listener, but the truth is your brain will naturally want to see what is wrong and missing in your partner and your relationship, and even in yourself. So I sometimes have called this flossight or lower brain dictatorship. And it happens to all of us when we don't know how to be the guide of our own brains. You've definitely also heard me call this lizard brain, right? Your lizard brain will kind of lead the show, and it will destroy our marriages when we let it, or slowly erode them, or just make them boring and unhappy. So our lower brain dictatorship tends to lead to marriages that naturally feel harder, feel harder and harder over time. So your primary work to make your marriage so much better is not to get your partner to be different, which I know is the instinctual thing to do, but to learn how to help your own brain be different. So it loves clearly and freely, and ultimately naturally creates a culture of more and more love and lightness and connection between you and your partner. So a good episode for this that I never refer people back to, but I think could be really helpful here, it's actually a bonus episode, and it's sitting in between episode 92 and 93, and it's called The Best Love Comes from Understanding Your Own Brain and Nervous System. And I go into more detail there. And I also give you a directory of other episodes to help understand that even more deeply. So this is an excellent resource. All right, the last one, number 18. So this is the last one for now. There's certainly other counterinstinctual things that I could offer you, but I think 18 is enough for one day, don't you? All right, here it is. Building trust in yourself is so often the key to having better trust in your partner and the ways he handles life. Because when you trust yourself, when you know in your bones that you can handle his flawed humanness, his imperfections, his challenging, unskillful behaviors with grace and emotional steadiness, you simply won't be so bothered by the times he shows these flaws or acts unskillfully. You'll be able to meet it all in the very best ways for both your own self and for the relationship's well-being. And the truth is, just to make it clear one more time, all humans, all partners are going to be imperfect spouses at some point or another. All of us are going to have our shortcomings in relationship. That is a given. You can't avoid that. But when you trust yourself to be able to handle that and not be so bothered by it, you're not going to be daunted by what the future may hold between you, because you're always going to know how to come back to that centered, wise, loving place in yourself. And you'll be confident in yourself to always navigate anything challenging in your relationship in the way that will create positive growth and a deeper and deeper love between you as the messy humans that you are. So yeah, in this one I am talking about self-trust as really being the capacity to trust yourself to navigate the hard things and to come back to that essence, love, like to always know how to come back to that and then live from there. And that is absolutely going to generate more trust in your partner and trust in the relationship. All right, so these are some of the many ways that creating and maintaining a marriage that you love is actually counter-instinctual. And maybe another word that I sort of stumbled across as I was talking today was cutting edge. They're cutting edge because they're not what you've been taught, but they're actually what works. And I know this because of the results that my clients get. And again, I want to mention that they feel counter-instinctual and different because they're not what the mainstream teaches. They're not even what a lot of therapists teach. But a lot of marriage counseling doesn't have a great track record. There's a crazy fact out there that divorce levels have not changed or gotten less since marriage counseling became a thing. And by that, I mean couples counseling. And like I mentioned early on today, like our culture isn't doing very well with happiness in marriage, right? If you understand the statistics, you will know we are not succeeding so well in the realm of love and relationship and lasting marriages. And in large part, it's because we've been doing the instinctual thing or the culturally normal thing in our marriages. We haven't been taught the counter-instinctual things that actually work. Or we're just so conditioned. The cultural conditioning is just so strong. We keep doing the instinctual thing. So the good news is, you can totally unlearn the cultural conditioning and you can learn to live out these 18 counter-instinctual ways to a love-filled marriage that I've just shared. And the extra good news is that with the right learning and support, these counter-instinctual ways will become natural and effortless to you. They'll actually become instinctual and you will be able to tap into your innate knowing, your wise intuition of how to always guide yourself in your marriage to the most loving, light, connected places. But this will take some initial reorienting and learning, without which you're just going to keep repeating what got you to the not so happy place you're in now in your marriage. And that's the loving but hard truth. The work that I do with clients is counter-instinctual. It is cutting edge, but it is the thing that finally gets my clients the up until now ever elusive loving marriage that they've been longing for in their heart of hearts. So if you know you want to feel happier in your marriage and that you want a more loving, connected, mutually supportive marriage or relationship, don't hesitate to reach out and come coach with me. I would love to work with you. I would love to watch and cheer you on and really deeply support you as you change your marriage into the one you really always wanted. So to learn more and take the first step to coach one-to-one with me, you can head to hspmarriagecoaching.com and click the Work Privately with Me tab, or you can just go to the show notes, the description for this podcast, and you'll find the direct link there to learn more. All right, my friends, I hope you'll take these counter-instinctual ways that I've shared and kind of let them marinate and let your subconscious kind of integrate them, because they are huge, huge keys to the love you want. Be oh so well.